Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar today. Thank you so much for joining us, and we are very privileged to have you with us today. My name is Na Ajoko Ajay, and I'm a manager with the Tax and Regulatory Business of Deloitte, Ghana. Our theme for the webinar today is Understanding the Local Content Regime in the Upstream Oil and Gas Sector. Since the discovery of oil in commercial quantities in Ghana in 2007, there has been conscious efforts by the sector regulator to ensure Ghanaians benefit from the industry in diverse ways, from skills acquisition, capacity building, and direct participation in the industry. Our discussion today will highlight the structures which have been put in place to ensure this policy is achieved. But before we start the program, we would like to observe a few housekeeping rules. Kindly note that this session is being recorded and will be posted on our social media platforms subsequently. Currently, all participants have been muted, and at the opportune time at the Q&A session, kindly raise your virtual hands and you'll be unmuted to provide your contribution or ask your question. You can also drop your comments and questions in the Q&A chat box as are appearing on your screens. A poll will pop up on your screen during the program for your opinion on particular topics. We would appreciate if you would take a few minutes to complete the poll. Finally, at the end of the session, a QR code will be displayed on your screen to take your feedback on this webinar. Thank you for your attention. Next, our country managing partner, Mr. Daniel Owusu, will give us his welcome address.
Right, thank you very much, Anna, for that intro. If you please confirm that you can hear me, okay. Now, can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Owusu.
Okay, thank you. And good morning, everyone on the call. Indeed, it's a great pleasure to welcome you all to our webinar on understanding the local content regime in the upstream oil and gas sector in Ghana. We are excited to have you all here today for what promises to be an insightful session. I believe we have participants and stakeholders across all the oil and gas and the value chain, including enthusiasts from different sectors, contractors, oil field service companies, banks, insurance companies, and consultants. As the country continues to explore the most efficient and effective ways to derive maximum value from our natural resources to build a more resilient economy for the next generation, an important theme in this equation is the local content framework, which is the extent to which the output in the extractive industry sector generates further benefits to the economy beyond the direct contribution of its value added through part local ownership and links to other sectors. Deloitte's objective for putting together this online seminar is to deepen the discourse on the current local issues pertaining to the upstream oil and gas sector from three perspectives. One, from the regulator's perspective. Two, from the business consultants, and we will share our views. And the third part is from the participants' perspective. So we look forward to hearing from you. I believe the discussions will generate valuable insights in all industry players and shape policy direction in the coming years towards an even stronger industry. I therefore encourage you to stay actively engaged and ask all your questions as we strive to make an impact that matters. It is therefore an honor to have the Chief Executive Officer of the Petroleum Commission of Ghana, Mr. Egbert Fable, accept our invitation to be the keynote speaker for this webinar. And I'm sure you know him. Mr. Egbert Fable has been the CEO of Petroleum Commission since August 2017. He is also the chairman of the Petroleum Commission Local Content Committee. So you can see from this that this is a leader who has keen interest in promoting local content and Ghanaian participation in the oil and gas industry. And that desire is underpinned its leadership of the Petroleum Commission since 2017. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for joining us on this webinar to extend our frontiers of discussions on the operations of local content in the oil and gas industry. At this point, let me now invite Mr. Egbert Fable, CEO of the Petroleum Commission Ghana, to take over to do his presentation. Good morning, sir, if you are on the call. Good morning, Egbert. Petroleum Commission boardroom, if you can hear me, we're handing over to Mr. Egbert Fable to start with his presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ushu, and a good morning to your good self and all partners of Deloitte, the chief executives and representatives of companies who are present and participating in this webinar, distinguished invited guests, staff of Deloitte, and also staff of the Commission. And I want to believe that there are media persons also in our midst. A very good morning to you all, and also to all from diverse backgrounds who are joining us. Let me thank you on behalf of the Commission and on my own behalf for organizing this webinar ahead of challenging yet exciting times facing many resource-producing countries. I wish to express my profound gratitude for this invitation and for the opportunity to deliver the keynote address at this meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that through the interaction we are having here today, we will be able to provide and share ideas and gracefully take on board each other's comments and observations with the objective of realizing our collective quest of achieving excellence in our various fields of endeavor, particularly in the local content sphere. Coming from the Commission, an institution mandated by law to implement Ghana's upstream petroleum regulatory framework, I'm delighted to address you on the topic overview of Ghana's upstream local content policy and strategic direction. Ladies and gentlemen, the discovery of oil and gas in commercial quantities created high expectations for job creation, poverty reduction, and general prosperity. Hence, one major challenge that confronted Ghana at the time was, and I pose a question, how to develop our oil and gas industry with optimal local content and participation, and also enhance national development and create jobs. Typical of any new producer country, the industry in Ghana was saddled with obvious challenges with respect to technology and know-how, human resources, and finance. With these challenges, the country faced two strategic choices in exploiting the resource. The first is whether or not we should be revenue focused, where the country would seek the cheapest fast routes to first oil and the use of taxes and royalties for development. The effect of this policy being that little attention will be paid to local value addition and capacity building, or whether Ghana should focus or should be in-country focused. With this remit, the government takes lower revenue for higher in-country value creation and capacity development and job creation. To this end, government took a strategic decision to promote the development of indigenous capabilities and the use of local capacities in the exploitation of our petroleum resources by creating a conducive environment for indigenous Ghanaian companies to succeed. Therefore, recognizing the oil and gas industry as catalyst for our economic development, we needed to adopt policies which will achieve the following objectives. A, maximize the benefits of oil and gas wealth creation through use of local expertise, goods and services, job creation for the people, businesses and financing in all aspects of the oil and gas industry value chain. And secondly, to develop local capabilities in all aspects of the oil and gas value chain, through education, skills and expertise development, transfer of technology and know-how. Ladies and gentlemen, we concluded that the involvement of Ghanaians in the exploitation of Ghana's oil and gas resources will be achieved through mandatory local content in all petroleum activities. Thus, the government of Ghana approved the local content and local participation policy for purposes of promoting Ghanaian participation in the oil and gas sector in 2011. The policy outlined government's vision of full local participation in all aspects of the oil and gas value chain by promoting the optimization of value addition and job creation through the use of local expertise, goods and services, business and financing in the petroleum industry value chain and their retention in country. The expectation had been that our local content policy will ensure that Ghana will not be a mere beneficiary of fiscal receipts from oil exports, but to use petroleum production as a catalyst for accelerated and sustainable economic growth through the development of indigenous capacities and increasing the competitiveness of national industries. In order to give the policy a legal backing, Parliament passed the local content and local participation legislative instrument in 2013 to specify minimum obligations for operators in the petroleum sector with respect to local capacity development. The Petroleum Commission is mandated to promote local content and local participation. In doing so, the Commission takes into account the work programs of licensees and subcontractors. Our policy and legislation are underpinned by 5 cardinal principles which assist in leveraging economic growth and creation of skilled and internationally competitive domestic suppliers, namely 1, in-country value creation, 2, employment and skills development, 3, technology transfer, 4, equity participation, and 5, establishment of linkages with the rest of the economy. In line with our objective to build capacities and skills of industries, as well as develop internationally competitive businesses, our regime also requires all foreign companies operating in Ghana's upstream sector to incorporate joint ventures with indigenous Ghanaian companies or form strategic alliances or work through channel partnerships. Ladies and gentlemen, in giving preference to indigenous companies, our intention is not to discourage foreign participation and perpetuate inefficient and uncompetitive local businesses. It is our fervent hope that local participation will be maximized through procurement of goods and services, which will act as a multiplier for national economic development by contributing to employment, skills, and local supply development. It is therefore important to note that Ghana's local content law is not about nationalization of the petroleum sector or a protectionist initiative, but a vehicle for partnering investors to develop local capacities that will bring mutual benefits to the private operators and the citizenry who own the resources and ensure social harmony and cohesion. Ladies and gentlemen, let me briefly outline some of the initiatives undertaken by the Commission to develop local capabilities and maximize Ghanaian participation in the oil and gas sector. 1, stakeholder engagement. Following the passage of LI 2204 as amended, the Commission embarked on a comprehensive stakeholder engagement with all IOCs, major service providers, and other key stakeholders to sensitize them on the provisions of the legislative instrument and to seek their inputs and cooperation in its implementation. I must admit that this exercise has gone very well, and we are able to clarify various provisions of concern our partners throughout the various fora that we've had in that realm. Secondly, the establishment of the local content committee. Following the passage of LI 2204 as amended, the Commission established the local content committee as a committee of its board to oversee the implementation of local content programs, projects, and initiatives pursuant to Regulation 5 of LI 2204 as amended. The committee's membership has since been enhanced to include key stakeholders in the sector. The Commission or the committee plays a key role in the implementation of local content regulations and formulates policies and strategies for the effective implementation of the regulations. Thirdly, there is also the establishment of local content implementation subcommittees. To effectively implement the local content regulation, the Commission set up 5 strategic committees to maximize local content development and local participation, and also facilitate technology and skill transfer. Some of the outcomes of the work of these committees have been namely recommendation of strategies for unbundling contracts in terms of size and duration to enable the participation of small and medium-sized enterprises. Secondly, the recommendations for action plans for promoting local content in specific business areas, namely insurance, banking, catering, and hospitality, among others, that need targeted policies for local companies' participation. Thirdly, reservation of certain goods and services exclusively for indigenous Ghanaian companies. Fourthly, identification of areas of support and capacity building for Ghanaian SMEs to increase their competitiveness, and also the identification of opportunities for backward and forward linkages between the petroleum sector and the rest of the economy. Lastly, I must also speak to the fact that there's also been development of reporting templates. LI 2204, as amended, requires all companies operating in the sector to periodically submit to the Commission for review a number of reports. The Commission has developed a number of reporting templates in order to ensure uniform reporting formats among companies, simplify the reporting process, and ensure a standard method for evaluating local content plans and performance, and also minimize the volumes of information the Commission receives. In the area of capacity building for SMEs, ladies and gentlemen, specific measures and institutions have been put in place to ensure that indigenous Ghanaian businesses are competitive through capacity building programs. The Commission, in conjunction with other stakeholders, periodically organizes capacity building workshops and seminars for Ghanaian SMEs with a view to enhancing their competitiveness. I must also mention that one of the anchor pillars that the Commission has used over the period is the utilization of in-country allied services. On this, ladies and gentlemen, the Commission realized that there is a need to use the services of Ghanaian insurance and banking sectors for the conduct of petroleum operations. The Commission, in conjunction with the National Insurance Commission, developed an insurance guideline named the Oil and Insurance Placement for the Upstream Sector 3 years ago to address the insurance requirements in Regulation 27 and Regulation 28 of LI 2204 as amended, which mandates that all insurable risks relating to petroleum activities should be done through indigenous insurance companies. The protocol has helped the growth of the insurance market by providing the mechanism for the oil and also service companies to retain a substantial portion of oil and gas insurance premium in-country. We are currently working with the banking sector, including the sector regulator, the Bank of Ghana, to develop similar guidelines for the financial sector. I would like to take this opportunity to remind our upstream operators of the obligations under Regulations 27 and 28, and also Regulation 31, 32, and 33 of LI 2204. In the area of human resource development and localization of upstream oil and gas jobs, the Commission has put in place policies, programs, and initiatives that outline strategies to orient, train, and develop personnel by improving skills, knowledge, capabilities, and competencies required in the upstream industry. One of such initiatives under the Human Resource Development Program is the Accelerated Oil and Gas Capacity Building Program, which is a flagship program that was inaugurated by His Excellency the President in November 2017 and given to the Petroleum Commission to run. Contrary to capacity development programs in the past, the AOGC program is unique in its core mandate, which is capacity building in core technical areas and expertise for the upstream petroleum industry in areas such as welding and metal fabrication, non-destructive test technicians, production technicians, mechanical technicians, electrical and instrumentation technicians, among others. Beyond training, the Commission also focuses on international certification for the trainees, which makes it easier for them to take up job roles in the upstream petroleum sector. The program aims to train about 1,000 Ghanaian youth annually to equip them with requisite skills and technical expertise, not only for the oil and gas industry, but also for other related industries such as mining, manufacturing, construction and fabrication, automobile, railways, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of our efforts to curtail years of lost opportunities for indigenous welders in the upstream petroleum industry, the Commission decided to address this challenge by ensuring that welding training and certification in Ghana meets international standards to pave the way for Ghanaians to be employed in oil and gas, mining, automotive, and other allied industries. Consequently, the Commission established the Ghana Welding Bureau. The Ghana Welding Bureau is currently a member of the International Institute of Welding. I believe that these and previous such interventions will significantly contribute to increased local participation and employment in the upstream sector, in the upstream petroleum sector, mining, automotive, and other allied sectors in the country. Additionally, I'm able to report that we have been able to establish linkages with the downstream sector. In this area, we have made significant progress establishing such linkages between the upstream sector and the rest of the economy, thus avoiding or preventing the sector from being an entry economy. Currently, there are about 500 indigenous companies registered with the Commission to provide various goods and services to the petroleum sector. The government has also established a gas processing plant and allied facilities to process and transport indigenous produced gas for power generation. It will be remiss on my part not to talk about transparency. As natural resource governance requires a lot of transparency. The most critical principle in maximizing local content in Ghana is transparency. I believe that transparency is key in all business endeavors. The best way to secure a stable environment for investments is to deal with the regulators and other stakeholders in a transparent and legally sound manner, consistent with international best practices. The Commission has adhered to high standards of transparency, fairness, and predictability in its regulatory practice. Ladies and gentlemen, all these initiatives have yielded tangible benefits in the area of supply chain and employment. Though Ghana's local content regulations have been hailed by industry stakeholders as a very good instrument for creating a conducive environment for Ghanaian citizens and also indigenous Ghanaian companies to thrive, it has nevertheless encountered some implementation challenges. The recent global events and domestic challenges require that we undertake introspection of our laws and practices to determine how we can maximize local content and at the same time attract the needed investments in country. It is on these perspectives that the Ministry of Energy, in conjunction with the Petroleum Commission, with the support of Parliament, has reviewed certain provisions of the local content regulations, LI 204. The amendment will enhance the scope of local participation by permitting restrictive conditions, strategic alliances, and channel partnerships, in addition to joint ventureship as mechanisms for foreign participation in our industry. It is also for the first time a boost to local content participation by legislating goods and services reserved for indigenous Ghanaian companies, the so-called exempt list, rather than being only an administrative arrangement by the Commission. To conclude, ladies and gentlemen, we can only achieve optimal local content and participation through effective partnership with all stakeholders, in particular industry players. As the sector faces challenging times, the face of the looming energy transition, that is threatening investments in the sector, there's a tendency for mass panic over local contents as countries compete for foreign investments. This will lead to reversion of conventional wisdom of relegating local content to the sidelines. However, experiences in a country like Trinidad and Tobago after the 1980s oil price crash showed the exact opposite. So during this period that TNT's supply chain developed and built the necessary capacities because they offered lower prices for services, rebounding and growing, so that when prices rose, they were able to compete with foreign companies. Today's gathering is indicative of our preparedness to collaborate and work with relevant governmental institutions, multilateral agencies, industry, and all other stakeholders to promote local content and local participation in Ghana's upstream petroleum sector. In closing, as a first step in the right direction, let us seek to work together as partners by infusing and creating harmony amongst all stakeholders. I thank you all once again for our audience and respectfully entreat you to take keen interest in the rich presentations, lectures, and deliberations that have been lined up at this important time. Thank you all, and may success come all our efforts from this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Everett. I think at this point, I will hand over to Wisdom to continue. Thank you. We appreciate your insight. Wisdom, if you are ready, please take over from here.
Right, I'm very ready. Thank you and good morning to you all again from my side. Indeed, it's a pleasure hearing Mr. Fable talk about updates from the Petroleum Commission. And for me, Mr. Fable has done two things. One, he's giving us important updates around local content and the Petroleum Commission activities in general. And he's also empowered us when he touched on the Petroleum Commission's commitment to transparency and engagement with participants, regulators, and other stakeholders. Empowered us to really push on with this discussion in a transparent manner and also give feedback where we want to give feedback. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are just going to go very deep into the discussion and the main areas for today's webinar. We will start off with a short poll soliciting your view and assessing your understanding of some of the key changes in the space. Then we would have two key presentations for this morning. A short presentation from George Ankuma, who is lead tax and regulatory partner here at Deloitte, touching on the challenges and opportunities in achieving our goals for local content. And then we would have Mr. Kweku Boateng, Director, Local Content, Petroleum Commission, give us a deep dive into some of the key changes that have come by way of local content regulations and how stakeholders, players, licensees will be able to take opportunities in relation to these changes. So we can have the poll now, and then we would have the first presentation. So please stick and stay with us. At the end of the presentations, there will be a 30 minutes question and answer time where you would have the opportunity to ask your questions, but keep the questions also coming in the Q&A chat box, and we would also have opportunity for live questions where you desire to do so. So you should be expecting the the poll on your screen. We just want you to rank your understanding of the implications of local content regulations in the upstream oil and gas sector on a scale of 1 to 5. So please, you'll see this on your screen. I'll be grateful if you can just select on the scale. That would enhance our discussion. And then number 2 is just a quick question. You can put in few words. What do you think are the key challenges facing local content in the oil and gas sector in Ghana? You can put what you believe are the key challenges that we should be focusing on and addressing. And then the last question is our good old objective question, if you like. So which of the options below represent key recent changes to petroleum local content regulations in Ghana? Feel free to choose what you understand is the right answer. At the end of this webinar, I'm sure you would be very informed and know what these changes are. So we'll just have this on for another 30 seconds, and then we'll go into the presentations. Great, I see answers coming through. That's great. So we can prepare and go into the presentations. We'll show where we'll show the results of the answers, and then I'm sure by end of the webinar you would understand all the key changes in the space. So Marian, you can put this down, and then we can go straight into the presentation. Okay. So, well, there are 3 questions. You just have to scroll. You just have to scroll. So, Marian, can you show the results? Okay. Yeah, I think okay. So we have quite a good understanding of the local content space. Then for question number 3, well, we have 51% answering yes, answering correct. The D is all of the above. Don't worry, we'll go into details what all these changes mean for the local content space, the oil and gas space, and how you can take advantage of the opportunities. Thank you very much. So at this stage, I will invite George Ankuma, partner, tax and regulatory, Deloitte Ghana, He will do a 15-minute presentation. Then we'll go into local content updates and strategic direction from the Director of Local Content, Mr. Kweku Boateng. George.
Right. Thank you, Wisdom, and good morning. I believe you can hear me.
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. And thank you, Daniel and Egbert, for your insightful opening remarks and keynote address. I think you touched on very key initiatives that the Commission is taking, which I believe is very good. So on my discussions, I'll be looking at some of the recent changes that has happened within the sector. Can I have this slide? Wisdom, can I see the slide, please?
Yes, I hope you can see.
Right, we can go on now, yes. So please move on. We'll be discussing some of the recent happenings within the sector. And the first one we are looking at is amendment to the local content regulations and some of the key changes. And the first one we want to touch on has to do with the new partnership agreement that the amendment came with. So the amendment has come with the introduction of channel partnership or strategic alliance model or arrangements, which allow foreign participants to be able to partner with local participants, IGCs, we call it, to be able to form partnership without necessarily incorporating a local entity, unlike what currently exists, where for the foreign partners, you have to incorporate an entity before forming the JV. So this, I think, is a very good initiative that the amendment has come with, which will allow for, especially where there are specific short-term projects that has to be executed, and then the foreign partners go off. I think that this introduction, once implemented, will be very great. I believe we'll get more insights into that from the Commission. We also have seen amendments around the changes to what the definition of what constitutes indigenous Ghanaian company, which used to be that the Ghanaian national should own at least 51%. This has now been amended to 100% Ghanaian ownership, which in other words, one would say would increase the involvement of Ghanaians within the industry. Then we have also seen another introduction, which is the supplies reserve, and I think that the Chief Executive touched on that as well. Supplies reserve for the IGCs, which is very good for supplies and chemicals to locally incorporated or Ghanaian companies, which we think that will boost the participation of local industries within the sector, or the Ghanaian industry within the sector. And I think that's a very good one. There's also the need to touch on some revenue mobilization strategies from the government perspective, which are in the pipeline. The Ministry of Finance medium-term revenue strategy, as some of you may be aware, somewhere in September 2023, has been published to cover the period from 2024 to 2027. And some of the initiatives that are in there that I would say impact the sector includes proposals to enact an extractive industry fiscal regime, which will allow for a single document or a single law for the sector, for the extractive sector, and also to review and standardize the provisions as far as issues around taxation, royalties, and then windfall taxes are concerned. So windfall profit tax is concerned. So these are some of the initiatives in the medium-term revenue strategy by the government, which are to be implemented in the near future. Then We also, from tax perspective, we have seen the issues around cascading ruling and syndicate arrangements. And for those who may be aware, the recent court ruling, which touch on a lingering issue around whether the petroleum sector subcontractors were to pay tax at 5% final, or they were to pay CIT at the standard rate. I think that because it's a court ruling, I would say that it's a public knowledge now, the popular mixed drillship case, I think somehow have resolved that aspect of the discussions to make the sector 5% withholding tax that's applied by the contractor to be final. Also, the issue around branch profit tax, because some of the entities came in as branch operations, and so whether there is the need for branch profit to be paid after the 5%, I think the court ruling also did resolve that as to whether there will be appeal of that or not. What it is now is that currently the application of branch profit of 8%, branch profit tax of 8% is applicable. Then also the issue around cascading ruling, I think I mentioned that earlier. There was a ruling that allows for contractor, subcontractor to sub withholding not to apply, but there has been a specific directive or withdrawal of the ruling by the Commissioner General of GRE, which makes it said that after 2020, the cascading ruling is no longer applicable. But what then the industry should be looking at is more arrangements around syndicates arrangements, where you have a lead member of the syndicate, and then the withholding tax, once applied, would not be applied subsequently. So there's the need for us to be looking at more syndicate arrangements as far as withholding taxes are concerned, to mitigate the perceived double taxation in terms of the same source of revenue for players in the industry. That is very key. Then I've mentioned the introduction of the channel partnership and strategic alliances. I believe that there will be the need for more of this to happen to promote that sector, and for activities that ordinarily would require setting up a holdco before setting up another JV. So that's something that I think this new amendment has come with. Then also some other government reforms, environmental reforms that we are all aware of. This is a global issue. The global trend now is that everybody is looking at energy transition, renewable energy. And so for Ghana, at least, we've started something. The most recent one has to do with the emissions levy that was introduced just late last year. And then waiver for some import duties on electric vehicles. Then also the medium-term revenue strategy also hints on further fiscal policies to drive renewable energy in the sector. So these are things that are in the pipeline, and we believe that in the very near future, some specific regulations will be passed to deal with that. The CEO already mentioned the purpose of the local content and the benefits around it in terms of encouraging local participation within the industry, allowing, yes, you can move on. Please move. Yes, so he mentioned local participation, which also creates more employment, and then also allows for transfer of technology. I think these are very key as far as this industry is concerned. The limited or the challenge with financial resources, where the Ghanaian parties are not able to provide adequate capital, is still a challenge within the sector, and it's something that we have to be looking at. But overall, if you look at the opportunity for the local content to bring in more technology or transfer technology, generate value addition in terms of domestic supplies, I think that is very great. Let's look at some of the challenges that we see in the sector. And one is capacity of these IGCs, as we call that, the indigenous Ghanaian companies. So you agree with me that due to the limited capacity, as has always been mentioned, there is that perceived issue of fronting by local Ghanaians or IGCs, where one, they do not have the resources, and for that reason, they have to seem to be fronting, where even though the opportunity has been given for local participation, the reality of it sometimes is that the local partners are not able to provide the necessary funding or financing in terms of the capital when they form the JV. And for that reason, still the foreign parties would have to provide some funding. So a good idea, but then there's a good idea, but then there's also that challenge for the foreign parties identifying the appropriate local partner who is able to bring in the required capital. And something like I said, the perceived fronting, that means that they have to provide them with that funding again, which really is not the expectation. Then the issue of technology transfer, which the law clearly identifies, but the clarity as to whether this technology transfer is being done sometimes becomes a big challenge in terms of when the JVs are formed. Are we able to clearly identify or ascertain that the skills have been transferred to these IGs, especially under the JV arrangement, where these joint ventures are coming as two different entities coming together, each of them coming with their expertise and the ability for the commission to be able to track, to see that the technology that is expected to be transferred, are we able to monitor that arrangement? That's a key concern that has come up. Then also, in terms of even the current arrangement of JV structure, because of the fact that before forming the JV, you need to incorporate, the foreign parties need to incorporate an entity in Ghana. That entity is not going to be the operating entity, but rather ends up becoming a shell company and before going to the JV. So the challenges around the administrative management of that entity, administrative costs, meeting capital requirements, because you're a foreign entity, you have to work with the GIPC to meet capital requirements of 500,000 and all that, becomes quite a challenge. So with this, I believe the proposals that we have just discussed around, or the initiatives under the amendment, I think will go a long way to help projects to be dealt with. Then one other, you can move on. One other challenge that we have seen is that because of the JV arrangement or partnership that we have, definitely the need for transfer of technology, the need for transfer of knowledge is required. And for that reason, services that would have to be transferred down will have to be paid for. Now, the challenge when it comes to transfer pricing is that most often, because of the related party arrangement that is in there, the services are being sought from one of the parties who. And so the arrangement when it comes to pricing, the arrangement when it comes to what is the benefit of the services that are actually being delivered to the JV in Ghana, and did it actually occur? The occurrence test sometimes has been difficult, because even though these services are being provided, and for that matter have to be priced and all that, in terms of documentation, we have seen situations where appropriate documentations are not being kept. So when it comes to transfer pricing within the sector, it becomes an issue and a challenge for the industry players. So this is something that needs to be looked at by industry players, ensuring that appropriate documentation is put in place in terms of the transactions or in terms of services that are being provided when it comes to technology transfer arrangements, to defend such situations when it comes to audits by the Revenue Authority. Then one other challenge that we have seen within the industry has to do with the local content fund. As we are aware, 1% of the contract value or contract sum by the subcontractor to the payment by the contractor to the subcontractor is supposed to go for 1% under the local content fund or paid into the local content fund. What we are seeing is that sometimes the subcontractors, because of the pricing model arrangement with the contractors, the 1% is seen to be additional cost that impacts them. And so they are looking at, do we now have to transfer this cost to subcontractors to mitigate the cost that is being impacting on us? I think there is the need for the commission to come out clearly, make specific pronouncements or take specific positions to clarify the argument that has been coming around whether subcontractors should take the 1% also from subcontractors. I think that clarity from the commission would help to mitigate the challenge there. Then you can move on. Let's look at some opportunities within the sector. So the new model or the new changes that have come in terms of the new LI. The question that is coming up is that, for example, the 100% ownership by Ghanaians when it comes to the indigenous Ghanaian company, would this take retrospective effects in terms of existing companies or existing IGCs? Would they have to now go and beef up their ownership to 100% to be able to meet the requirements under the new requirements? This has to be clarified, and I believe that the commission, once we have them here, will clarify that to us. We've mentioned the issue of transfer pricing, and we believe that with the introduction of the 100% Ghanaian ownership, could make it a bit more easier to monitor or track whether the technology transfer is actually being done or being transferred to the indigenous Ghanaian company. Because if you compare to the previous one, where you have the JV, which each of the JV partners have their personnel and their teams working. And so it's difficult to monitor. But now with 100% Ghanaian ownership, I believe that it should be a bit more easy to see how the transfers are being done and in terms of technology. Then also, we believe that there's more opportunity now for collaboration between the Petroleum Commission and GIPC to align on the regulatory aspect of technology transfer regime that is supposed to be regulated by the GIPC. So we look forward for more collaboration with GIPC as well to deal with this. Then also the new reserve for supplies and chemicals to indigenous Ghanaian companies. We think this is a very good one and will create more opportunities for investment within the local side. Now, the other issue that potentially comes up is that there's the need to monitor to ensure that there's no disruption in supply, where these local entities or the local reserve of supplies, the indigenous companies are not able to finance the supplies, and so the potential disruption of supplies. And so the need for the PC to possibly looking at this and how they can support the local companies to be able to ensure that supplies to the sector are not impacted. Then also the channel partnership and strategic alliance that we have mentioned earlier on, we believe that that will help with leveraging or deepening the Ghanaian involvement in the sector, and also help accelerate the skill transfer that we mentioned earlier on. Few recommendations before I leave. So the first one is for the PC to consider or start looking at the shareholding company that we talked about under the current JV model, where you set up a subsidiary which ends up not doing anything but have to be filing all statutory returns and challenges that come with it, even though not running business. And then we think there will be the need for some more light shown there, and possibly then also we are looking at how the PC can support some of these indigenous Ghanaian companies through the requirements under the acts to provide them with some funding, which will support their operations, especially with the modification that has come for reserve of certain supplies and chemicals to the by the IGCs to the industry. At least some funding would support them to build capacity there in terms of resource. Then training, I think that the CEO mentioned a lot of training initiatives already, so I wouldn't talk too much around that one. But what I'll add finally is also to say that there has been an issue of syndicate arrangements that I mentioned earlier when it comes under the income tax law. For withholding tax purposes, there's the need for syndicate arrangement to minimize the impact of cascading. Whereas under the PC, there's nothing called syndicate arrangements. We believe that it's about time that the PCs collaborate more with the GRA, that's the Revenue Authority, to streamline or align with the arrangements in terms of syndicate arrangement, and more especially with the modification that has come with this amendment of having the channel partners and strategic partners to be able to minimize the challenges that players go through when it comes to the arrangement. But the tax authority, on a number of occasions, have been asking for evidence of PC approval of syndicate arrangement, whereas the syndicate is not something that falls under the PC regulations, and so there's no requirement for PC to approve that syndicate arrangement. These are some of the recommendations or thoughts that we thought PC can throw more light on or consider in the near future to help with the industry development. Thank you very much. And at this point, I would like to bring on board the man who will give us details of all the discussions that we have done in the person of Mr. Kweku Boateng. Mr. Kweku Boateng is the Director, Local Content at the PC. So, Mr. Kweku Boateng, I hand over to you. Hello, Mr. Boateng. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, George, and good morning to you. Good morning to our listeners. And let me thank Deloitte for this opportunity for the commission to share their views on the recent development in local content in the upstream oil and gas industry. The industry has grown far since the discovery of oil, as my boss, Mr. Ebefebe, indicated in his earlier remarks. And a lot has been done in the area of local content. Some success have been achieved. There are still some challenges. And in view of those challenges, we continue to review and reform the regulations and guidelines to make sure that it's in line with the current development in the industry. What I will do this morning is quickly share with you the overview of local content regulations and the recent amendment to the regulations, the opportunities that it offers to the industry, and some of the expectations that the local Ghanaian company will have in terms of the recent development there in the local content. Now, by way of introduction, local pursuit of local content in the upstream oil and gas industry started before the LI 2204 in 2013. Prior to the enactment of the LI, PNDC Law 84 and Law 64, that Petroleum Exploration Production Law and GMPC Law, mandated companies to use also have provisions that require companies to use Ghanaian goods and services and Ghanaian personnel. The challenge with the earlier laws and agreements were that there was no specific local content requirement on the companies with regard to local content targets. Therefore, government saw the need to have a specific policy and law to enforce local content. So in 2011, the cabinet adopted local content policy, which aligns the government vision of local content in the oil and gas sector. And in 2013, Parliament passed local content regulations, LI 2004, to give legal backing to local content policy. And since then, implementation of government local content policy agenda has been done through local content regulations. So we can go quickly through the specific requirements or highlights of local content policy, local content regulations. This is just overview of history. You can just jump over this quickly. Yeah. So the law defines what is local content. When you look at many jurisdictions, Nigeria, Trinidad and Tobago, Malaysia, Brazil, Angola, they have different definitions of local content. In our law, the definition of local content is provided as the quantum or percentage of locally produced materials, personnel, financing, goods and services rendered in the petroleum value chain, which can be measured in monetary terms. So when you talk about local content in oil and gas industry, upstream sector, we are looking at the quantum of locally produced goods and services, the employment of Ghanaians, and the use of allied services such as finance and insurance. And the law requires that the usage of these services and goods produced locally should be measured in monetary terms. And when we look at the law talk about local content, local participation. Local participation here refers to the level of Ghanaian ownership in the enterprises that participate in oil and gas sector. So either at the E&P, exploration and production level, or at the provision of services, you look at the Ghanaian ownership in those enterprises. And here the idea is that if oil and gas is supposed to serve as a catalyst for national development, then the Ghanaians should be part of the process that own the industry in Ghana. So the law also focuses on the ownership of the businesses in oil and gas sector, that is local participation. So when you look at the policy and the law, there are primary pillars in the law about the local content. So you call them 5 pillars of Ghana's local content policy. One is that we want to develop local capacity and enhance Ghanaian expertise development. We also want to increase patronage of Ghanaian goods and services, facilitate technology and skill transfer to Ghanaians, and enhance the R&D capability in country. We also want to increase value retention in Ghana through local participation. And lastly, to create linkages between the oil and gas sector and related industries. These are the 5 tenets of our local content policy and local content regulations. Now, let me quickly take you through key features of our local content regulations. One, the regulations require that in both contracting and employment, we give first consideration to services provided within Ghana and goods manufactured in country. We also require that in employment, we give first preference to qualified Ghanaians. And the law requires that when we have qualified Ghanaians available for employment, the oil companies should employ Ghanaians. And in situations where Ghanaians are not, you don't have qualified Ghanaians available, they have to submit a succession plan and a training budget indicating when they are going to recruit and train Ghanaians to replace the expatriate staff. Yes. And the law also makes specific provisions. The law requires that for the exploration and production that the license holders, before they can get signed petroleum agreement, they have to give a Ghanaian company a minimum of 5% participation in the proposed license arrangement. And however, the law also requires that there could be a situation whereby, depending on the challenges with regard to a particular block or license area, it may be difficult to get a Ghanaian participation. Remember, this 5% equity participation is not carried, unlike the GMPC carried interest. Here, the Ghanaian company holding the 5% must pay for it. It's a paid equity. There are situations whereby, due to the water depth and the cost of exploration and development, getting a Ghanaian company or syndicate of Ghanaian companies be able to raise a 5% equity participation could be a challenge. So the law also gives the minister that flexibility to vary the requirement. The minister can increase it beyond 5% or bring it below the 5%, depending on the situation. And here, this 5% equity participation is to avoid fronting, whereby a Ghanaian can come in, acquire the 5% stake, and later transfer it to foreign companies. So the law requires that once the Ghanaian get 5% equity participation in a license arrangement for exploration and production, you cannot transfer it to a foreign company. Yes. For the provision of services in the oil and gas industry, the law requires that either the service should be provided by an individual Ghanaian company or a joint venture company between a Ghanaian company and a foreign company. So if a foreign company wants to provide services in the oil and gas industry, they must form a joint venture with a Ghanaian company and give the Ghanaian company a minimum of 5% equity participation. So, and when you form a joint venture, as per the Commission joint venture guidelines, to avoid a Ghanaian company being a passive partner, whereby it sits in the JV setup, and all that it does is to collect rent without active participation. Our JV arrangement requires that the two JV partners must submit their roles and responsibilities, indicating the role of the Ghanaian company and the role of the foreign company in the provision of services. There should also be a technology transfer arrangement whereby the foreign company will gradually transfer skills and knowledge to the Ghanaian counterpart. Here, the whole idea is that you want to build in-country capacity to the extent that Ghanaian company will be able to assume the role of the foreign company eventually. And we saw this when the COVID struck and the global supply chain was disrupted, and a lot of foreign workers for health reasons left the country. If we hadn't trained capable Ghanaian technicians and engineers, and some Ghanaian companies have not able to develop supply chain capability, the industry must have come to a standstill. But when COVID strike and all the disruption, the movement of workers, the supply chain disruption, due to the capacity that we built in the country, we're able to continue production of oil and gas with minimal impact of COVID. So this is the whole idea of this joint venture formation, to build Ghanaian capacity so that when our foreign counterparts leave and they're not there, we have a capable Ghanaian company that will be able to stay in the industry. Yeah, the law also makes provision for contract and bidding process to make sure that qualified Ghanaian companies are not sidelined. The law requires that every development or every project that is being undertaken in the industry, the companies, the IOCs, and the junior Ghanaian companies should ensure that there's a local content component in that petroleum activity. And they also must ensure that there's approved minimum local content levels in each petroleum activity. And local content level, which the Petroleum Commission approved, depends on the sophistication, the complexity of the particular activity. Certain activities are not so technically sophisticated. You have in-country capacity in Ghana. For those activities, you specify very high local content targets. There are others that the capacity is limited here in Ghana in terms of finance and technical capability. Those activities, we are modest in the local content targets. And as I said, the law also requires that they employ Ghanaians in junior and middle level positions. These are the semi-skill level which we have developed in country capacity. And all these supervisory role and middle level technical and managerial roles should go to Ghanaians. And for all contracts that is executed between the operators and the subcontractors, they should also submit local content plan for the duration of the contract, indicating how to patronize Ghanaian goods and services, how to enhance in-country spend, and how they will employ Ghanaians for the execution of that particular scope in the contract. And this outline, let me quickly outline the contract, the bidding process as outlined in the contract. Now, for all single and sole sourcing contracts, the law requires that, irrespective of the value, once a single or sole source contract, the company must seek approval from the Petroleum Commission. And every contract, and if the contract is competitive tendering, then if the value exceeds $100,000, they will have to seek for Petroleum Commission approval. And the reason here is to make sure that, one, for the single and sole source contract, we want to make sure that we enhance the Ghanaian participation in those contracts, and also control the cost of single and sole source contract. And normally, for most of the contracts whose value are less than 100,000, they naturally go to Ghanaian companies. So the local content in those contracts are almost 100%. So you don't require them to seek Petroleum Commission approval. The law also requires that in establishing a bidding process for the acquisition of goods and services, preference should be given to Ghanaian companies. So here, the law requires that the companies should not award contracts solely because that they are giving the contract to a lower bidder. They should also take into consideration the local content level in every tender process, every tender that they receive. Ordinarily, local content tend to be expensive. A company may be able to submit the contract, a bid document to the operator, and the local content level could be very high. And because of the high local content level, its cost will also be very high. So the operator should not only look at the cost and award a contract to the lowest bidder, they should be able to have a fair trade-off between the local content level in various bid submission and the cost of the bids that is submitted. And Ghanaian companies should not be disqualified just on the basis that they are not the lowest bidder. Actually, the law requires that even if you have a qualified Ghanaian company that submits a bid, and its cost is up to 10% higher than that of non-Nigerian Ghanaian company, the contract should be given to the Ghanaian company. And here, I want to just add a little bit of caveat. Over the years, with the implementation of this contract, we have seen situations whereby the application of these provisions have not been beneficial to Ghana. We have a situation whereby some of the contract sums are very huge. There's one development whereby there was a particular contract scope, and the contract that the Ghanaian company bid was almost $100 million, about a little more than $100 million. And its cost was almost 10% than that of the nearest JV company. And because of the application of this provision, the contract was awarded to the Ghanaian company. But later on, we found that this Ghanaian company imported most of the items and used foreign subcontractors, the execution of the contract, to the extent that in terms of the value, what the Ghanaian companies actually performed was less than 5% of the contract sum. Meanwhile, we have added almost $10 million to the contract sum for the Ghanaian company to win the contract. But the scope that they executed was even less than $6 million. And this extra cost that was added to the contract sum for the Ghanaian company to win, we treated as cost for oil. But the country didn't benefit much in terms of local content development. In view of this and the other experiences, henceforth, before they can apply this 10% cost advantage to any Ghanaian company, they have to sit down with the commission and we will look at the contract sum, its impact on the cost for oil, and the scope that the Ghanaian company will perform, for us to determine that the additional cost to the project is worthwhile in terms of local content level. Even though the law has provision for this, in terms of administrative arrangement, we always look at it on case-by-case basis before we apply this provision. Next slide. So the other reporting requirements, as my CEO indicated earlier on, companies are required to submit annual local content plan, annual performance plan, annual procurement plan, quarterly procurement plan, and quarterly employment training plan. And these are to make sure that we're able to monitor and assess local content performance look at the law on the schedule. There are targets and also for employment. And with respect to employment, these are the targets that have been set in the law. And I'm glad to see that in terms of employment, we have most of the companies have exceeded the target set up in the law. And capacity building of Ghanaians over the years. And for various goods and services, in terms of the targets, the law also specifies how you measure local content. And for the sake of time, we can't go through most of this target, but I only take the law. You can see the target set in the schedule. And just also as a way of caution, when we look at the schedule, the target that will be set there, some of the targets are very, very ambitious. That even some of them, and in a generation or two, you struggle to meet those targets. So in view of that, the Commission is now undertaking comprehensive review of the LI to review the targets and other provisions in the law to make it more realistic and responsive to the industry. When you go to the schedule, the targets, some of the targets there are very extremely ambitious, given the in-country capability here. Now, after 10 years of implementing the regulations, we have better understanding of what is achievable and what is not achievable. So we are reviewing the target to make it ambitious but realistic. Now, what are the emerging trends? There are current emerging trends in the industry, which really require that even though the local content regulations and the policy have served Ghana very well, there's, however, the need to look back and see what has worked and what has not worked. The emerging trends such as energy transition, which is changing the way the companies operate. For instance, now there have been competition for investment in the upstream oil and gas industry. Many countries within the sub-region, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, Namibia, Angola, all of them are making their law more flexible. They are relaxing their regulations to attract investment to the sector. We have also seen reduction in the EMP activities within our sedimentary basins due to combination of the external factors and internal factors. I've often seen that there have been an improved local capacity, capabilities within Ghana. And most of the operators, because the requirements in their home country and to meet also the international protocols, they are putting a lot of pressure on Ghanaian companies to meet ESG requirements as part of their contracting process. In view of all these issues happening within international arena and within Ghana, we have decided to reform our regulatory process to make Ghana more attractive to investment and also deepen local content levels. So, next slide. So as part of the reform that we are undertaking, we are starting a review of the LI 2204 to make sure that certain provisions in the LI reflect the current trend in the industry. The Commission, together with the Ministry of Energy, has also embarked on a review of our fiscal regime to make it more feasible so that we can encourage the development of small and marginal fields and give more incentives to companies to go into the deeper waters. We have also embarked on aggressive investment and promotions to attract more investment in Ghana. We started the licensing rounds about 2 or 3 years ago, and we hope that we are going to have another licensing round to encourage more investment into the sector. And the whole idea is that without investment in the EMP activities, there will be no local content. And therefore, the local content strive upon continuous investment in the sector. And so on that basis, that the Commission is reviewing our regulatory process, our fiscal regime, to attract more investment in the sector so that there will be a lot more activities and more local content. It's on that basis that this year, our local content conference in Takoradi in 1st week in October, the focus will be on attracting investment in the sector to boost local content. And we invite all participants here to join us in Takoradi. Now, one key amendment to the local content regulations that was done in 2021, November 2021, was to amend the law to enhance participation of foreign companies in our upstream space. Now, the focus of the amendment also look at the mechanism in which foreign companies can participate in the upstream space. As I said earlier, in the regulations, the formation of JV was the only means for foreign company to participate in the upstream space. And this was found to be very restrictive. And many potential foreign companies that want to come to Ghana were denied opportunity to participate in the upstream space. Even though the JV arrangement has helped us very well in building capacity, it came a time that we need to look back and increase or enhance avenues for foreign companies to participate in the upstream oil and gas space. Now, what is the rationale behind the amendment? We found that there are a number of contracts, because of their nature, when they ask foreign companies to form joint ventures with Ghanaian companies, it becomes very expensive and difficult for them. And for those contracts, we don't have capacity in Ghana for the Ghanaian company to execute those contracts. And some of these contracts, that's the execution, they're very difficult. Usually the JV vehicle are one. They're short-term contracts. Certain contract scope are very short-term in duration. 3 months, 6 months, 2 months. So they can be very high value contracts. This contract comes once a time, maybe one executes it. Next time that such a contract scope will happen, about 3 or 4 years. So if you ask the company to come and form JV to do a contract for a period of 3 months, and they will not do anything again for the next 3 or 4 years, it becomes difficult for this company to really come invest in Ghana. The short-term contracts were very difficult to execute within the JV arrangement. There are also some contracts that were executed under the emergencies. Sometimes you have problem on the APSO or on the production field. You need to bring foreign companies that have the required expertise to fix the problem. They don't have a JV in Ghana, and therefore they cannot come and execute the contract in Ghana here. And we have one-off projects. There are certain projects that once it happens, it can be years or decades before another project, similar project, be done in Ghana. There are also contracts for softwares. There are software companies that sit overseas. We don't have capability for in providing those software. And these software companies, when you look at globally, in terms of the licensing for the software, the market in Ghana can be 0.001% of their global turnover. When you ask these companies to come and form JV in Ghana, they won't come because the Ghana market is so small, so insignificant. And looking at the cost of forming the JV in Ghana, it may not worth it. And there are also small value contracts. Some contracts are very small in terms of value, less than $100,000, $60,000, but you need to get the particular service or equipment overseas. For which the legal cost and administrative charge of forming a JV will be more than the cost of the contract. There are also what we call overseas-based contracts or S-works. There are certain equipment, machineries that we need for upstream operations, and they are manufactured outside Ghana. For those manufacturers, they don't have intention to come to Ghana. They manufacture those equipment spare parts, and the IOCs go there to buy those equipment at their factory. So these are the aspects, and therefore these companies will not come to Ghana to form a JV. In addition, there are also a lot of OEMs contracts, original equipment manufacturers. If you go to the APSO, for instance, you can find over 1,000 components on the APSO that are manufactured by different foreign entities. when you have to replace this equipment spare parts, you have to get it from those original equipment manufacturers. This company you cannot force them to come and form a JV because of the value of business here in Ghana. So we found out that over the years, contracts that fall within this description, the IOCs, we are permitting the IOCs to procure these goods and services from foreign companies rather than from JV. Because if you insist that they have to form a JV, the industry will come to a halt. And a lot of value will be leaked out from the country. So in view of this, the commission together with the sector ministry sat down and said that let's reform our laws to create a permitting regime for foreign companies to provide these services that ordinarily were being procured overseas. In view of that, in November 30th, Parliament amended the law and allowed formation of channel partnership and strategic alliances as alternative to formation of JVs in the oil and gas industry as a way of deepening in-country activity and enhance local content in the industry. So the law, the strategic alliance is defined in the law as an arrangement between a non-Nigerian Ghanaian company and a Nigerian Ghanaian company by which the responsibility of each partner are clearly defined, and partners agree to share resources to undertake specific mutually beneficial projects, while each retain independence. So when you look at this definition, there are three key elements that you have to note by way of channel strategic alliance. One is that it's an arrangement between a foreign company and Ghanaian company. And under the channel partnership, each company will have a role to play in any scope of contract that is going to perform. However, unlike the JV, the independence of each company is maintained. So when they finish executing a particular scope for the channel partnership, they parted ways. The Ghanaian company will remain, the foreign company will also remain. That's right. So the commission developed guidelines for the formation of strategic alliance and channel partnership. And here, the view of the commission is that the joint JVs is the primary vehicle for foreign company participation in the upstream oil sector. The strategic alliance and the channel partnership are going to be permitted under a restrictive conditions. So for a company to be permitted to form a channel partnership to execute contracts in the upstream oil and gas industry, just to meet at least one of these conditions. One, the contract has to be a short-term contract, less than 6 months or below. And this contract is not going to be re-awarded to that channel partners within 2 years. Two, the contract has to be at least one off contract with the duration not exceeding 1 year and should not be re-awarded to the same channel partners within the lifespan of the project. So if the project is a OCTP project and you come for a strategic alliance permit and it's one off contract, that contract the same contract should not be re-awarded to the channel partners within the lifespan of the project. Otherwise, you have to form a JV. It also has to be a technical project with value not exceeding $100,000 US. Or it should be a contract under emergencies. And the guidelines are defined what constitutes emergency. And it also has to be contract executed as specs with duration not exceeding 1 year or not exceeding and the value, and no contract value not exceeding $2 million, and not to be re-awarded to the same strategic alliance partners within 2 years. Or it can be a framework, global framework agreement for assets that is situated in Ghana. So if operator, let's say Talo, might have a global framework agreement the company to supply casings or pipes. So if they supply pipes, that global framework with a steel mill to supply them with pipes, then that steel mill should form a channel partnership, a strategic alliance with a Ghanaian company. Now, as I said, for the strategic alliance, the JV is the primary vehicle for foreign companies to operate in Ghana. And the strategic alliance is project specific. Once they execute the project, the strategic alliance is terminated. It's not a standing arrangement like a JV. The company that wish to form strategic alliance must apply to Petroleum Commission for approval to form strategic alliance. And you look at the particular project they want to execute. The commission will determine whether it meets the criteria that I just explained before we give them the permission to form the strategic alliance. The IGC and foreign companies that are forming strategic alliance must demonstrate that they have complementary businesses. Their businesses are similar. You don't want a situation whereby a logistic company will go and form strategic alliance with a company that is coming to install, say, risers and flow lines. The companies have to have a similar line of business before you permit them to form strategic alliance. And yet the purpose is that we want the Ghanaian company to be active partner in executing the scope of the strategic alliance. So you don't want the company to have a very distinct line of businesses. The company must also demonstrate technical and financial capabilities to execute the scope. We must comply with all applicable laws and regulations. Now, so the guiding principles, as far as the tendering, so the guiding principles, that let me just take you quickly through. The contractor shall assess the competence of all the parties in strategic alliance. Here, the contractor, what you mean that if the contract is being given by any operator, being Talo, ENI, Cosmos, or Peckham Energy, before giving contract to strategic alliance partners, they must evaluate the technical and financial capability of all the parties in strategic alliance. And the two parties shall sign the strategic alliance contract. We also require that the parties in strategic alliance to open accounts with a bank in Ghana. And at least if they have, and at least one of the accounts should be with an individual Ghanaian bank as defined by Bank of Ghana. In the sense that if they have only one bank account, that bank account should be with an individual Ghanaian bank. But they can have an account with an individual Ghanaian bank in any other bank operating in Ghana. And in terms of invoicing for payment for strategic alliance, the alliance partners shall invoice and receive payment separately. So here, the Ghanaian company in strategic alliance is performing a particular scope. The foreign company is performing a different scope. Each company must invoice separately and receive payment for each scope that it has performed. And each company should be responsible for its own tax obligations. So, and the contractor can ensure that it deducts 1% into the local content fund for any payment that it makes to the alliance partners. And alliance partners must also demonstrate that they have an operational office. If it's an engineering company and executing any fabrication work, they must demonstrate that they have a fabrication yard, either they own it or they possess it from the owner of the fabrication yard. And all information related to the contract must be kept in the operational office. Let's slide. Okay, yeah, good. Then another aspect of the amendment, apart from the strategic alliance, is that the law also allow another avenue through China partnership. The law defines the China partnership as an arrangement between an Nigerian Ghanaian company and a non-Nigerian Ghanaian company, including a distributor, a vendor, a retailer, a consultant, a system integrator, an original equipment manufacturer, or a value-added reseller, to market and sell the products, services, or technologies for the non-Nigerian Ghanaian company in the country. So all the companies that want to sell their products in Ghana for the oil and gas industry, the product or service, and they are not suitable to form a JV or strategic alliance, they have to form a China partnership with a Ghanaian company to provide their goods and services in the upstream oil and gas industry. So the China partnership arrangement is fitted for the OEMs, original equipment manufacturers, that want to sell their equipment, spare parts, machinery to operators in Ghana, and they don't have a JV. They can form a China partnership in Ghana, whereby their Ghanaian China partner will act as their distributor or value-added reseller in Ghana. The software developers that provide various types of software to upstream operators. Now they can only provide those softwares through their China partner in Ghana. The same applies to system integrators, those who really have various equipment, spare parts, and they will have to assemble them and install them in the production field. They have to work through a Ghanaian company. Those who provide various technical consultancy services and critical equipment supplies also have to, they cannot supply them or provide those services sitting in their overseas offices. Now they have to get a Ghanaian China partner and provide those technical consultancy services, equipment, before they can deliver that service to upstream industry. Okay. All right. So these are the requirements. It's very similar to the China partnership. If they want a company want to provide, it's similar to strategic alliance. If you want to provide form a China partnership, you apply to the commission. Commission assess, determine whether what you want to do fits within the requirement of China partnership. Next slide. And here, the difference between the invoicing and payment between the China partnership arrangement and strategic alliance is that here, with the China partnership, is a local company that will sign the contract with the contractor or the operator. So all payments and receipts should go to the local company, and through the arrangement with the foreign partner, they will pay the foreign partner for its share of the scope. So the China partnership, the local company sign the contract and receive all payments for the contract that is signed. Yes. And here, what have been done so far? The Commission has developed draft guidelines for the China Partnership and Strategic Alliance. They have also developed a permitting regime. That is a requirement for a company to qualify as a China partner or strategic alliance partners. They have also developed model petroleum agreements to guide companies that want to form China Partnership and Strategic Alliance. And they also develop application templates for companies that want to form strategic alliance and China partnership. Next, please. I'm bringing that. Yeah. And also the amendment has reserved certain goods and services, as Mr. Fabio said earlier on, that for the first time, they have legislated goods and services reserved for the Ghanaian companies, and there are a tall list of them. You can't go through all of them, but they are in the amended guidelines. Next slide. Next slide. These are the also all goods and services, chemicals, and goods and services that are reserved for only Indian Ghanaian companies. What are the implications opportunity for the industry? I'll go through quickly in the next 2 minutes so that before question answers. For the Ghanaian companies, the amended LI has provided a lot of opportunities for them to reach out to the market that in the past they couldn't have opportunity to access. Now, there's a low requirement for Ghanaian companies to access technology that they don't own. Now they can gain expertise and skills and know-how through strategic alliance and channel partnership. And it also offers opportunity for them to improve their management system and the technical certification to allow them to provide technical scopes. And we also think that may increase the profits and in-country value retention, in the sense that the services that were being provided overseas by foreign companies now can be provided in conjunction with Ghanaian companies. For our foreign companies, the reform also provide them opportunity, flexibility in business arrangement in Ghana. They can now, apart from JB, they have other avenues to also operate in Ghana. And it also reduces the transaction cost of operating in Ghana and enhance market penetration and diversification of the operations. And also afford them to also comply the local content requirements. And it has also introduced flexibility in the contracting arrangement. The expectation for IGC is that when entering into any of the strategic alliance or channel partnerships, you have to choose the right partners to optimize your benefits. You have to ensure that the agreement that you are going through should be mutually beneficial to the local companies and the foreign companies. And they have to also develop strategic plans to ensure continuous growth and sustainability and the ability to perform technical scopes. So the way forward is that the Commission intends to publish the guidelines within a month. However, the new developments has happened, and you want to clarify those new developments. So the Commission is inviting the Registrar General Department and the Ghana Revenue Authority to have a discussion on the implication of the strategic alliance and the channel partnership on the company registration process, especially the requirement for the companies to incorporate. And the new amendment to the local companies code, which recognize foreign incorporation, external incorporation, as meeting the requirements of incorporation. You want to understand the tax implication of it in respect to the new GRA now requirement for this branch office tax. So during this month, the two entities will be invited to the Commission to do a presentation. And once we clarify few outstanding issues, we are going to publish the guidelines and roll on the strategic alliance and China partnership. So in conclusion, I will say that the National Commission will continue to spearhead the development of local content in upstream activities, and we continue to review our strategies and methods to make sure that it's responsive to the emerging trends and continue to deepen local content in Ghana. Let me thank you. I've taken too much time, I know. Let me thank you for your time and audience, and I'm available for any questions or clarification that you need. In addition to the issues that was raised earlier on by Deloitte, I'll be able to respond to some of those issues. Thank you very much for your audience.
Great. Mr. Watson, thank you so much. If we had a hall, I would have said a round of applause to you. 40 minutes of solid insights from the man, Director, Local Content Petroleum Commission. And I'm absolutely happy that you've touched on very important areas. And as you can imagine, most of the questions that we have received are around strategic alliance, channel partnership. I believe you've answered a number of them, touching on the key areas. We have one asking whether for strategic alliance, then does the foreign company have to get incorporated in Ghana before getting into such arrangements? I know you've answered that in this last part, that you are finalizing the guideline. I don't know whether you want to add anything, but I want to add two more key questions for you to address, and then I'll bring George in on tax. Do you want to answer this first question briefly, very briefly?
Yes, quickly, yes. Yes, the strategic alliance required a foreign company incorporate in Ghana for the form strategic alliance. And the reason is that for strategic alliance, foreign company will come here, will have facilities over here, and execute the contract here in Ghana. It's on that basis that we require that they incorporate in Ghana. However, we have received concern from some of these foreign companies that the same problem that exists in JB, that they find difficult to form in JB, has been imported back to the strategic alliance. But what we are saying that now is that now the amendment to the company's law, external registration is now regarded as incorporation, and that is less onerous than the traditional incorporation. However, there are some issues with the requirements from the GIPC and GRA, which we want to clarify. And once we clarify those issues, we will go back to that provision and see whether to be amended or to be maintained, to wait for the plan meeting with GRA, GIPC, and the register of companies. And then you will go back and look at that provision.
Super. All right. So concerns have been received, and you are working to finalize. Let me so much for sticking and staying with us. We'll plead that you allow us to do 10 more minutes more than beyond noon, so that we'll just tackle your questions and then we can be out of here. So I have 3 questions here. So regarding the annual local content and localization submissions made to the Commission, what measures has the Commission put in place to ensure that the figures reported are a true reflection of IGC's remuneration, training, R&D, CRS, etc.? So I'll let you touch on the checks and balances you put in place in relation to these annual reports. Then we also have from Mr. Afram, who first comments that Ghanaians must be able to lead strategic leadership transformation in the oil and gas sector. What are the sustainable talent development strategies for developing local talents for strategic planning and managerial roles in the Ghanaian oil and gas services industry? So a comment and then a general question there for you. And then the last one I will add, while there is regulation surrounding employment of local staff, are we encouraging the companies to actively invest in the universities in order to strengthen the education of fresh graduates for the industry? So some broad strategic questions. I'll be happy you share your thoughts, and then we will deal with a task question, and we can be wrapping up very shortly.
Yeah, thank you, Wisdom. Yeah, on the first question, on the verification of the reports that the company sent to the Commission, I think that's a very valid question, very legitimate question. How do you ensure that the reports, the figure that they give to us as the in-country spend, the training expenditure, the R&D expenditure, and others are accurate? One, the Commission has developed the reporting template, as I said, which is basically Excel-based template to standardize the reporting process to make sure that we harmonize all the reporting on the companies. So you see this report from them, but we don't end there. Our MRB monitoring, reporting, and verification system requires that we have a monitoring and evaluation department that also go into the books of the companies to verify the information that they send to us. Now, listen, when the companies apply for Petroleum Commission permit, as part of the permit application process, they submit their books, their financial books, their audited accounts to us, which we also cross-check these figures that they provide in local content report. And in terms of the in-country spent, contract given to Ghanaian companies, when they submit to us, there are other checks. For instance, if a subcontractors submit their spending report to us, the operators, Talo, ENI, Cosmos, AK, and others, they also have what you call contract commitment report and value of service report, which they send to us. And they have similar information. So you cross-check information from various sources. And I have to tell you that every year up to now, even since we started the MRV system, we put it in place, there's always discrepancies between the figures that we receive from different contractors and their subcontractors. So we try to reconcile them, but we have a various checks in the system that to make sure that, but I have to say that it's not a perfect system. We are still continuing improving them.
Sure.
And the other question on the sustainable development of talent, I think the CEO, Mr. Befebe, mentioned on one resource development program. One of them was the AOGC, Associated Oil and Gas Capacity Building, which we are building the capacity of Ghanaians. Since we started the AOGC program, about 150 technicians have been trained in various fields: instrumentation, pipe fitting, mechanical and electrical engineering at the Jubi Technical Training Center in Takoradi. We have also sent a group of instructors, about 11 or so, from the technical universities to Canada, Northern Alberta Institute of Technology, to be trained as instructors. They have come back and have been appointed to various institutions. I am talking to you now. Another batch of 10 instructors from the technical universities are going to Singapore under the sponsorship of Jensen to be trained. So there's a plan. And they also have a GASIP program, Ghana Upstream Internship Project, whereby young graduates are sent to various, from the university, are sent to various oil and gas companies as trainees to build capacity. And as a follow-up to the last question about collaboration to the universities, we also have the university collaboration program, whereby we have created a platform between the universities and the industry, whereby annually the universities, the industry players provide input into the syllabus at various faculties. And also, we also have a training program whereby the faculty members also get practical training within the company, both in Ghana and outside, whereby they are trained. They also get a practical training of oil and gas industry to help them in their teaching and research at various universities.
And I think that's impressive. I'm sure we would continue to do more and continue to see the impact of this initiative. So one just came in. If a Ghanaian company acquires more than 5% stake, when you were talking about the local requirement for 5% equity stake in a petroleum agreement, Mr. Asante is asking if the Ghanaian company has more than 5%, can they sell their interest? I guess the person is looking at the excess interest or maybe everything that the local entity has acquired in the petroleum stake.
Yes. As I said, the law requires that they give a minimum of 5% equity participation to Ghanaian company. And this is a paid interest. If a Ghanaian company doesn't want that interest for the 5%, it can sell it, but it cannot sell it to a foreign entity. You have to sell it to a Ghanaian company. However, if a Ghanaian company acquires more than 5% mandatory interest, then extra interest, which we treat it as purely commercial interest, that one they can sell to any entity that they so desire, either local or foreign. But that one they have acquired beyond the mandatory 5% requirement. So they can sell it to any entity they want.
Right. Very well answered. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I think some of your questions have have been answered. We had our participants, Ekuya Amenyedo, asking about guidelines around channel partnership, strategic alliance, and I believe Mr. Boatin has done justice to that. There was a question around how a foreign company can get into the space, and Mr. Boatin has done justice to that. We have the JV structure, where you go into a JV with an indigenous Ghanaian company. And then we now have the channel partnership and the strategic alliance that you would have to apply to the commission to get into the space. So from these discussions, I'm sure it's very obvious that the commission remains very open to engage investors. If you're a new entrant, please feel free to connect to the commission. We maintain a good working relationship with the commission, and we'll be also happy to guide you. We had a question on taxes, likely tax implications for an indigenous company who engages a non-resident. And our partner, Gideon IU, has answered that live, depending on the factors what you are doing. George, I don't know whether you would want to say a word before we invite Gideon to give us the closing remarks as we draw the curtain to this wonderful, very engaging webinar
Thank you,
today.
Wisdom, and I will say again, thanks for the insight from Mr. Boatin, especially on the collaboration between the PC, GIPC, and the GRA. Like I mentioned earlier, there has been a lot of challenges when it comes to agreements on some of the positions, syndicates against strategic alliance and channel that we have now and withholding taxes. So it's good with the collaboration that is ongoing. So the question has already been answered with the tax. I think you mentioned that Gideon has spoke. I thought I was going to answer that, but I said Gideon has addressed it. And I perfectly agree with the response. It depends on the nature of the contract. And so it's important that going into agreement with non-residents, you seek guidance on the nature of the contract that you are going into, as far as taxes are concerned, because the way the contract is structured, the way you go into contracting will give different tax implications. So you may be having the same type of arrangement or the same type of transaction, but the underlying agreement or the underlying arrangements would then give rise to different tax positions. And so the need for you to look at it, whether there will be withholding tax on the rental or the lease, and whether the arrangement will give rise to corporate income tax, brand profit are very important. And so thanks, Gideon, for addressing that earlier.
Thank you. So
I think I hand over to you.
Very well. We'll call on Gideon Ayowu, who is a partner, tax and regulatory, to share closing thoughts with us as we wrap up this webinar.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Kubatin, Egbefebel, George, and then all the previous speakers, and including the participants here. In fact, we are here because of you, and I've watched the numbers. It's been very high, even though it went on. People were attention close to 400 on just Zoom alone. So thank you. I think for me, as I said, the attention had been on. It took a while, but we were very much interested. Nobody was leaving because all the things we were saying were very relevant, and we are seeing them in practice. So I've learned a lot from it. And I was looking at the 4 pillars as Mr. Kwekubatin shared, and then it flows through all the actions we are seeing the Petroleum Commission take has been based on this. And one thing that struck out to me is that the purpose of the local content is not just for the nationalization of the industry, but to make sure that it serves as a basis for which the whole economy will be boosted or the whole economy will grow. More importantly, I think for a lot of the listeners here, we're interested in the strategic alliance, the channel partnerships, etc. And a lot, we have been getting a lot of questions or queries whenever you talk to the investors. So we are very much looking forward to the discussion you'll be having with the Registrar General as well as the GRA. It's because the tax implications, sometimes our laws are not fully up to date, especially what it will mean with the Registrar General And for us in the tax department, things like permanent establishments will be cropping up for the non-resident partners, and how they will be dealing with the local partners here, and what would it mean for them, for VAT, for example. How would it apply to them in terms of area, and that's we are looking forward to seeing more is the energy transition and what it means for investments in the industry. As you rightly put it, if there's no industry, if there's no investments here, then there will really be any local content. And the effect of this energy transition and having shale oil in the US has been that it's reduced a lot of the investments, and a lot of the financiers are not really picking up, especially from the Western world. So people are now looking towards China and India and other parts of the world to get the investment. And how would we then partner? What changes would we then have to make? Because a lot of the countries in West Africa are making changes rapidly. Senegal is doing a lot. Cote d'Ivoire is discovering a lot. So it means that our laws, implementation of it will have to be very, very up to date, so that we continue to get the development, we continue to get the investment in the sector, which will continue to propel, and then we'll make sure that the local content would work. I think the last to put it, I thank all the participants, and then I think for me, the targeted policy in pushing the local content and what is happening in the oil and gas sector is being looked at by the Mining Commission, for example, and being looked at in the other areas. So the steps being taken by the Petroleum Commission would help determine how local content is implemented across the rest of the economy. So it's been very insightful, and I look forward to having more engagements with the Petroleum Commission, especially as we engage on this local content or indigenization of the economy or sector for the rest of the economy. So thank you very much. Wisdom, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been a great time with you. We want to remind you that we have our feedback link in the chat. Please take a few minutes to share your feedback with us. The poll question on challenges, we are organizing that, and we'll share that with Petroleum Commission as well. And I believe this will enhance collaboration and policy going forward. We will also share the recording for this webinar with all of you. So please look out for it. You will receive our email with the link for this recording so that you can always play it back. Finally, I will say thank you again to Petroleum Commission, to all those who joined this webinar. I know we have questions that we could not answer live. We will reach out to all of you. Please feel free to reach out to us if you are showing anonymous, because we would like to reach out to you, speak to you directly, and discuss important questions that you have raised. We also have the QR code on the screen. Feel free to use your phone to give us your feedback. It's a good day from us here in Deloitte and Petroleum Commission from Jowolu. Thank you very much for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay.